Do you know how to code and want to use that skill to start a business? My guest today did just that. He started coding in high school. He dropped out of college and worked in venture-backed companies. He's now decided to build his own thing, which he's coding with Laravel. He's growing a solopreneur AI-driven SaaS called Subscriber to $1 million in yearly recurring revenue. His name is Gil Hildebrand. He's here to share his insights on the technical and entrepreneurial challenges of building his own SaaS by himself. Gil, thank you so much for joining. First, what is your origin story? What's the path that brought you up to this point?
Sure. So I always knew that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I figured out really early on that I liked building software specifically. And in high school, instead of the sort of stereotypical job of delivering pizzas or something like that, I actually started working professionally writing code for a web development company. And I did that throughout high school. When I graduated, I started college, but I also got some contract work on my own to do software development, and was doing so well with that I really quickly dropped out of college and basically, have had very few actual jobs since then because I've just always been on this entrepreneurial journey. And I think a key theme has always been, how can I find inefficiency in a particular type of business and then build software to make people's lives easier. I've done a lot of different things. I had one previous company called Squidoo, which was a social publishing platform that I created with Seth Godin. We built that up to be one of the top 50 websites in the world at one point in time in terms of the amount of traffic that we received. And one of the unique things that we did was we paid back half of the money that we made to the people that created content on our platform. So it was a pretty revolutionary concept. And, not unlike YouTube, which we'll be, I'm sure, talking about more in just a minute. But, that was a pretty big venture. After that, more recently, I did a company in the crypto space, this crypto accounting software, and sold that business last year and was looking for something new. And I, started exploring different ideas, but I hadn't really settled on anything. And then I came across this idea of, faceless YouTube channels. And I liked this idea of building a team, producing content, and putting it out there and making some money without having customers. That would have been a new thing for me, not having customers. But of course, I found that it was a lot harder to actually run or build and run one of these types of channels than I initially realized. And that's where I saw an opportunity to build a software solution that could help. And so that's how I ended up building Subscriber, which is the current product that I'm working on today.
And what is Subscriber? What service does it provide?
For YouTube creators that need help creating a plan and outline and even a full script for their videos, Subscriber basically gives you a step-by-step structured process based on best practices for YouTube content creation. And the end result is like a finished script that you can use to, pass on to your voiceover artist, your editor, to create content for your channel.
Now, from my experience of using the tool, Subscriber's core added value is the storytelling structures and script writing frameworks that it provides. Was this know-how already a part of your experience and your skills, or was it something that you researched to be able to build the tool?
My grandmother took me to libraries when I was just a little kid, and also taught me how to read very young, like 3 or 4 years old. And so I've always had kind of a natural affinity for reading, for writing. In high school, I took a number of different creative writing classes and courses. And of course, as an entrepreneur, a big part of what you do is storytelling and, of course, communicating, written communication and things like that. So while I don't have a long history in script writing specifically, writing has always been a part of what I do. And, I have a good understanding of things like, narrative techniques, storytelling structures, and all of that kind of stuff. Of course, I've done a lot of research since then and have basically devoured every single resource I can find on the subject of YouTube script writing. And what I've done is basically distill all of that advice and those best practices into a software product that basically does all of that for you, so that you just need to bring your idea.
Could you tell us about Subscriber's origin story? How did you come up with the idea? And how did you validate that there was a market for it?
I found myself spending a lot of time on YouTube, and I know that it's interesting to, older adults. It's interesting to kids. Basically, it's the one platform that like everyone is on. And even in the United States, it's now the number one streaming service above Netflix. So I found that was a good market. There are over 30 million YouTube channels that are in the YouTube Partner Program, and YouTube pays them, I think, somewhere around $15 billion a year for the ads that are shown on those videos. And that means that people are actually making money with this. And if they're making money, then they probably have money to spend. But there is a hidden problem, which is that most creators are individual people or small teams. And as an individual, there's no redundancy. And it is a constant slog, especially when creativity is involved. So if this is your livelihood, how do you create content consistently and regularly, and when you're sick and when you're on vacation, and all this sort of stuff that can get in the way? And creator burnout is very, very real. And it's not uncommon for people to have a great stint where they're publishing lots of content, getting lots of views, and then just completely fall off the bandwagon. And so I realized that this was actually, a big problem that needs to be solved. So that is sort of the way that I was thinking about it from a overall market perspective. Now there's the there's another perspective of like me personally. Why did I tackle this particular opportunity? And my last company was venture backed. I raised millions of dollars. There's nothing. I actually don't have any issues with, venture capital funding or creating that stereotypical Silicon Valley type of startup. But what you need to know is that that needs to be like $100 million or $1 billion outcome in order for investors to be happy, and in order for you to be happy, sure, considering you've sold a lot of your equity. And the problem with that is there are very few ideas that are $1 billion ideas. And we don't know which ones those are until they get built. And that is why the venture capital industry exists, to basically place a lot of bets. And what's unfair about this, and it's of course everyone knows what they're signing up for, but the venture capitalists bets, they may place 20 bets, and knowing that 15 of them might fail, 4 of them might do decent, and then 1 is a home run, and that basically makes up for all the others. So that model works for the venture capitalists, but what if you're one of those 20 founders? And it's actually not a 1 in 20 chance that you're going to do well. It's like a 1 in 100 chance, sure, or 1 in 1,000. So if you're looking for, success, the chances are higher if you're able to bootstrap, because if you get to $1 million in revenue, that may actually be life-changing for you. Whereas with a venture-backed company, that's like, okay, now get back to work. Mm-hmm. And so, I decided, okay, I want to build a bootstrapped indie hacker, solopreneur kind of business. Pick your buzzword for that. And then I thought about it and I said, okay, well, I want to do this, but ideally, I don't want to be in a market that's so big that it could be $1 billion opportunity, because then I have to probably deal with competitors that are venture backed. And so if I say I want to build this as a solo entrepreneur, Do I necessarily want to be, against a company with 50 or 100 employees? Probably not. And what I like about YouTube is that there are some specific economics about it that make it like not as attractive for venture capital. Like, even though there's 30 million channels, in the YouTube partner program, again, there are a lot of individual people. There's going to be a higher rate of churn. They don't have, huge budgets. You're not going to be, you're not going to have customers paying you like $25,000 a year, like, big enterprise business type of software companies want. And so I knew that wouldn't be attractive to them. And so that would be a space that's big enough for me to succeed, but also small enough that there's some sort of cap that would potentially cap some of the competition, unlike if I was going to build like CRM software or something like that, which, is a huge opportunity, but also very, very, very competitive.
Sure.
So that was my personal insight. How did I test the market? Well, I was coming into YouTube completely fresh as, someone who doesn't have any experience with it other than starting to create a faceless channel of my own and seeing the issues. So I couldn't lead with an authoritative angle. But the first thing I did was create a new Twitter account and started following everyone I could that was posting interesting stuff, started interacting with them. And then my sort of builder mode, builder mindset came in, and I found some opportunities to tap into the zeitgeist. What I mean by that is like, see what conversations are happening on Twitter, and then quickly within like 24 hours, building some sort of tool or, data dump of information that would be useful to that conversation. And I was able to get into the conversation a handful of times. And that sort of, got me on people's radar. From there, I built a couple of, interesting lead magnets that I was able to give out to people on Twitter with like a viral giveaway sort of thing, which people do all the time. And I built up an email list of like 1,000 people who were interested in what I was building. And, I started teasing out like, hey, I've got this script writing tool I'm launching. From there, I did a pre-sale where I said, okay, I'm gonna set aside the first 50 customers that are essentially going to be like lifetime, deal customers. It wasn't exactly lifetime, but with what you get with it, it's basically lifetime and at a fixed price. And, I sent that to the list of 1,000 people, and I sold the first 50 customers within a couple days. And with the promise of, I'm going to build this thing and I'm going to launch it to you in 2 months. And so that was all the validation I needed.
You mentioned plugging into the zeitgeist and providing smaller tools as lead magnets. Going through Subscriber's interface, I saw several tools that aren't strictly part of the script generation process. For example, there's a tool for analyzing YouTube videos. Is that an example of the tool that you created as a lead magnet?
Yeah, that's right. The first thing I did was I built a tool that could look at a YouTube video, like just put in the video URL, and it would retrieve the transcript and then break down the script into a number of different parts and sort of explain, why those parts worked. And if you're not using a tool like this, then what you do is pull up the video on YouTube and you press play, you pause, you rewind, you listen to it again, and it's a very laborious process. So what I did was essentially build a tool that uses AI, of course, that helps with this analysis for the purposes of trying to understand the script structure and why it works. So from there, I said, okay, well, if I can do this for one script, I can do it for an entire channel. And so I basically started analyzing entire channels. Like, for example, I saw that one really popular channel among aspiring YouTubers is Iman Gadzhi, who's basically, like an agency owner and sort of a thought leader. And so I analyzed his channel and was able to find what are the common hook structures, which ones actually lead to more views. Of course, that's correlation, but you could look at about 10, 15 different factors and see, what is the style that makes this channel work. And I would then put that into like a business intelligence tool, so it's all graphed. And so that was the giveaway. And that works really well because not only are you offering like unique insight, but you're also attaching that to someone that people find interesting. And so that, the combination of those things helps with virality.
Now, am I correct in thinking that you're the sole person on the team? Are you planning to change that? And more widely, what's your goal with this company? How do you plan to grow it?
It's just me. My goal with this company is, can I get to $1 million in recurring revenue per year with just me and AI as my co-pilot? I have been, fortunate or unfortunate, however you want to look at it, to basically have, fulfilled every role in a software development company in the past. So I'm very comfortable with all that. The challenge is that working on the product and letting people know about the product are two very different things. And it becomes challenging to sort of always switch gears or always be doing both. And so the way that I handle that is I just work on one at a time. So I'm either working on the product or I'm promoting the product, and I'll go through phases. I just finished a huge cycle where I spent several months working on the product. So now it's time to get it out there. I do want to point out though that there is one particular market, like with indie hackers or solopreneurs online, where it's very easy for them to work on the product and market it at the same time, when it's tools that other solopreneurs would want to use. Because you're talking about like, here's the behind the scenes of me doing something, but your audience is people just like you, so they're interested in that. Whereas if I was talking about like, coding challenges or the workflows that I'm using to build subscriber, YouTube creators don't really care about that. So I think it's an important distinction that the build in public concept, which is very popular, works for some audiences, but not all.
And just to backtrack a little, would you mind sharing what tech stack you're using and why you've chosen that stack?
Yeah. I've been developing. I started developing code professionally in 1999. So I guess that puts me at 25 years, which is pretty crazy. I'm 40 now, so that would have been 15 when I started. I've tried a lot of different coding languages and frameworks, and I went from being opinionated to feeling like it doesn't matter what code stack you use, because all that matters is that you know it well and that you're productive, to now I am very opinionated again. And I'll tell you why. Because, well, let me just get to the gist and say I really like the PHP language with the Laravel framework on top. Really, it has to have Laravel for me to like it. Ruby and Ruby on Rails could probably also be a good stack. But what I don't like are the newer JavaScript-based frameworks. And the reason why is because there's an emphasis on always pushing the envelope and developing something new. And what happens is your code becomes outdated very quickly. The language and the third-party libraries you use, which often can be many, many different libraries, will go out of date very fast. And then you spend way too much of your time trying to maintain it just so that your application's up to date. Whereas, PHP as a language has been out there for like probably close to 25 years. Laravel is also very mature and doesn't have a ton of breaking changes. And also, there's a huge ecosystem of things that are built on top of Laravel that help you not have to like reinvent the wheel. So yeah, I wouldn't say that like Laravel specifically has to be the answer, but I'm very against the current like JavaScript ecosystem just because of how quickly things change.
And what is your strategy in terms of evolving the tool and providing new features?
Yeah, I learned a hard lesson with some of my previous companies where you see this whole market, you know, and you want to build a solution that sort of solves every problem that the market is having. But if you do that, then you don't end up solving any of the problems really well because you're going so wide that it's hard to go deep, and it becomes very difficult to maintain when you have like multiple product lines and not everyone needs every part of the product. So, you know, you're essentially wasting, time by building those things. So although it's very hard for me, I basically, every day wake up and try and only focus on script writing and how can I improve the quality of the writing? How can I improve the quality and make it better, make it sound more human? And that has been my sole focus so far. You mentioned earlier that there's a section of the subscriber app, which is like some tools that people can use, just kind of small utilities. The only reason I built that is because I thought it'd be good lead magnets for people who are searching Google and saying like YouTube tag generator, for example, or YouTube description generator. They can search and hopefully come across my website, and that helps them learn about the product. But it's really been focused on script writing, and I think with version 2.0, which I just launched last week, the writing quality is getting quite good. About as good as it can be with the current models that are out there. Of course, there's more I can do, but I think I'm just gonna like pause there on writing quality for now, and maybe come at it with an open mind of like, what is the next big thing that people need, and that should still be connected to script writing in some way.
You mentioned earlier a goal of $1 million of yearly recurring revenue, which, if my math is correct, is somewhere above 80K of monthly recurring revenue, or MRR. How in line are you with that goal? How have you been able to focus on growth, or has all your focus been on software development for now?
Yeah, so on Twitter, there's this like phrase people talk about, like money Twitter, where basically it's just a euphemism for people who are talking about like tactics or strategies for making money online, and specifically the number is always like $10,000 a month, because I guess the thinking goes, hey, if you're making $10,000 a month, like anybody could live on that, even if you live in a place that's pretty expensive. So that's always like the initial metric for success, and I hit that pretty quickly with Subscriber. Because I hit that, I said, okay, well, I am going to just focus on building this tool and making it the best that it can be. And I've seen most of my growth since then has come from word of mouth. I do have an affiliate program as well. So, coaching programs will recommend using Subscriber, like, YouTube coaches. And, there have been some videos on YouTube, sort of reviewing Subscriber, and that has brought in customers as well. But it's primarily word of mouth. And that's because I've just been laser focused on making the product better. Now I think I'm entering a new phase where I feel like the product is good enough where, the total market that I should be able to service today, could be 5 or 10 times the current customer base. And so now it's, really about getting the word out there. I've got Google ads running. I've done some Facebook ad experiments, and I think a big strategy for me is going to be SEO, or just optimizing getting traffic from Google. And then of course, like YouTube, right? I have a YouTube tool. I should be creating content on YouTube, and I'm still figuring out the exact angle for that. There's the obvious angle of like, hey, on a subscriber channel, there should be lots of tutorials about how to use the product. But beyond that, how do you create like top of funnel awareness that drives demand? And I have a couple ideas for that, but I haven't pulled the trigger on it yet.
So you're not eating your own dog food, so to speak, yet?
Oh, I am. I am. So one way that I use it is I create scripts, and I've published some videos on YouTube using those scripts, and that's been helpful. And also, I've taken those scripts and I just publish them straight to the subscriber blog as is, and they rank on page 1 of Google.
Nice.
Page 1, page 2. And so I think that's a nice hidden benefit of the software. I don't market it as an AI blogging tool because there are lots of AI blogging tools, and I don't really want to compete with that. I think YouTube is far more interesting because on YouTube, you're creating content for people to consume, whereas with blogging, often what people are doing is just trying to create content that they think the Google algorithm wants. And the idea is that, hey, you end up on this website and then you realize it exists and you start clicking around. But with YouTube, it's like, how can I keep someone's attention? And I'd rather work on that problem. I think that's interesting.
Yeah, the recent updates in Google's ranking algorithms seem to be going the same way with the HCU, the helpful content update, which favors content created for engagement and for humans more than the, say, mechanical side of SEO. So that certainly makes sense to me. And I've tried creating scripts via ChatGPT or on Fiverr, and I was never really satisfied with the results. Subscriber gets me a lot closer to the result that I'm aiming for. Part of that is because of the storytelling techniques that it uses, like the curiosity loops. But I always found that both ChatGPT and the scriptwriters on Fiverr sounded unnatural. That's one of Subscriber's strengths, being able to provide something that's closer to what I'm looking for to my voice. Could you tell us more about how you achieve that?
When you use Subscriber, one of the first things you do is you type in the name of your channel, and Subscriber goes and looks at your videos, downloads the transcripts, analyzes them, and creates what I call a channel voice. Now, a channel voice is really the writing style that the content uses. And it turns out that can vary quite a bit from channel to channel. And, it could be things like, what reading grade level is this? Like, how complex are the words? How long are the sentences? What is the ratio between the number of short sentences versus like medium length sentences? Like a short sentence could be like 3 words or 5 words. A medium sentence could be like 12 words. And then a long sentence could be like 20 words. What's the ratio of those? Another thing could be what narrative techniques are used. So is the video directly addressing the viewer? Like do they say, in this video, I'm going to teach you how to, and that is a direct address to the viewer? Or does it say something, very descriptive, like describing the scene of a crime in almost like a fiction novel sort of way? Those are different techniques that are used. And so Subscriber has something like 20 different data points that it uses to understand how to write like you. And you don't need to know anything about how to use it in order to get that channel voice. But I've spent a lot of time on that because I think that's really key for people to use. And it's almost impossible to make that consistent when you're using something like ChatGPT.
While we're on the subject of AI and how you're using it to provide script writing services, what's your take on the impact of AI on software engineering jobs? And what's your advice to software engineers?
I've spent the last 25 years always feeling like if you're a software developer, you don't have anything to worry about. You are going to be able to get a job somewhere. It's a very high demand, in demand skill. And I think that as software developers, we're in a very dangerous time because AI is getting a lot better. And I think in the future, I think we're already seeing now. In fact, I have friends who are out looking for jobs, and they're saying that the market is really tough for software developers right now. Part of that is for economic reasons, but I think AI is having an impact as well. And I think the best way to counteract that is to, take more control over your own destiny. Like, instead of working for someone else, try and find a future where you can build your own brand. In a world of AI where, machines are doing more and more, I think the stories of people's personal brands is going to be very important. And for a software developer, fortunately, you can build products, but what you're probably not very good at is letting people know about what you've built and making sure that you've built the right thing, because it's so easy to have a good idea and, think that this works great for you, but, it doesn't always work for other people. And we have a tendency as software developers to just kind of ignore or say, but I know what's best. So my advice is to, pick an industry that you're passionate about, be part of the conversations that are happening online. I'm not a huge Twitter fan, but, it honestly is the place if you're trying to get lots of feedback or, to participate in conversations in a specific market. And start tinkering around with things, but share them publicly and be receptive to like whether you receive feedback on them or not. And if you create something remarkable, which means that people care enough about it to talk about it, then you're on the right track. Don't try and monetize from day one. Like, you need to build an audience first, but also don't build a product and give it away for free. I think you can do like I did, where you start to build some interest by giving away parts of it and building up a list of people, and then do like a small pre-sale to, even before you build the full thing, and to try and get some money from folks, because that is ultimately the right validation. I've struggled in the past, in previous companies where you show something or you talk about an idea and people say, that's so great. I want to buy that. If you build it, I'll buy it. And as developers, we have these like happy ears where we hear that and we think, okay, that's all the validation I need.
Yeah.
But what you're not hearing is like, I will buy that if it has this one integration that I forgot to tell you about, or if, it's only $20 lifetime, or if my boss says it's okay, or if I have the time to play with it. And so all that really matters is like that you put something out there and people actually pay for it. And then you're on the right track.
And if someone's on the fence about going down a similar road or about to embark on the same journey, what would your advice to them be?
Don't play founder. And what I mean by playing founder is being excited about all of the little steps that people do to feel official. So the old thing would be like getting business cards made. Like, nobody does business cards anymore, but in the past, that would be the thing that's like, I'm starting a new business and I'm going to get business cards made. Today it might be, getting social media handles, but not actually using them, or like buying a domain name. It could be things like building a website, but not putting any content on it. It could be, thinking a lot about like, what is the right business corporation structure to optimize for taxes? None of that stuff matters. And if you do get to the point where it actually does matter, you'll be at enough scale where you can afford to hire somebody to fix it for you. So literally do not spend any time on formal business stuff. Spend all of your time obsessing over the problem and the market. I think it was Paul Graham who said this. Basically, someone asked him, what's more important, people, product, or market? Those are like the three things to consider with the business. And basically, he says that market is the most important thing, because if you have good people and a good market, you can win. If you have a good product and a good market, you can win. But if you have good people and a good product, but a bad market, there's no way to win because there's no one to buy your product. And so you need to pick a healthy market, and that means a market where there is competition. The competition generally is some sort of validation that a market exists. And you need to pick a market that's like growing and that has potential. You need to pick a market where there are people who are actually going to be buyers. You could build something where there is a market of people who want to use something, but not necessarily pay for it. And you want to build what should be considered a painkiller, not a vitamin. So that's, a very common phrase that, startup founders talk about is like, is this a problem that people absolutely need solved? Or is it like a thing that, just sounds good and will make their lives better, but isn't a burning issue? Of course, you always want to be working on a problem that's a burning issue, because those are the only ones that people are going to prioritize.
Thank you, Gil. That was helpful both to me and I'm sure to anyone listening. And before we sign off, is there anything else that you'd like to share that I might have forgotten to cover?
Yeah, I guess there's a couple other, things I'll say. Market is super important. When you're creating a new business, don't do anything fancy or weird. And what I mean by that is, don't do any weird business deals that seem great in the short term. Like maybe it's like more money or a certain client that's a big client, and you think if I get this client, then it's gonna basically be tons of credibility. Don't do those deals, because you're putting too many eggs in one basket. And also, if you have like a weird deal structure that could basically just overcomplicate things in the future, what you really want is a whole lot of customers that are exactly like each other, or maybe not exactly like each other, but have the exact same problems. And that way, if one customer churns for any reason, there's more of them that can take your place. Your goal is to find a repeatable market, one where you can sell the same product over and over, not build slightly different versions of the same product for different people. Even if they're willing to pay more, it's not worth it. And if you do build a business like that, then you're basically, you need to be charging lots of money, like on the orders of 5 or 6 figures per customer, because otherwise you're just not going to make it. And in that case, you're still talking about like needing big teams and a lot of scale in order for the business to work. So, my advice there is try and find a problem where a lot of people need the exact same solution. And that's what you're looking for, the repeatability of it all. Instead of doing like weird business deals, just look for the most simple and easy to understand business model that doesn't try and reinvent the wheel. You don't really want like a new business model. Every once in a while, something comes along where, there's a new business model that's invented. Like let's say an Uber, for example. But in most cases, reinventing that kind of thing is bad. In a startup, people perceive startups as like taking a lot of risks, and that's true. And so what you want to do if you want to be successful is actually reduce the risk. Like, how can I make this startup the least risky of all? And I think that's like a way to think about it that people typically don't. And so, you innovate in one core area, and that's something related to like the market or product, but typically it's not the business model or like, a specific customer or something like that. And just keep it very standard and normal and not weird. that would be another big advice point.
And how can people get in touch with you?
Sure. So my Twitter handle is Gil Hildebrand. That's GIL Hildebrand, HILDEBRAND. And I've got DMs open, so people can get in touch with me there. Subscriber is subscriber without the E in the name, .ai. And there's a Discord for that as well. I'm pretty accessible there. And now that I'm crawling out of my product cave that I was in for the last couple of months, I look forward to talking to people once again.
Well, Gil, thank you very much for everything you shared with us. It was very instructive. Thank you. And of course, if anyone wants to try out Subscriber, I provide a link in the description. The tool provides free credits to get started, and the link provides a discount. And if you're interested in more deep dives at the intersection of business and software engineering, well, feel free to sign up for my newsletter. I've provided a link in the description. And I'll see you in the next video.